And we're going to start, and I want to thank all those of you who are zooming in from across the state. And again, for the benefit of those of you zooming in, I'm Brian Jollis. I'm president of NAIFA Maryland, and I want to welcome you to our third regional meeting. We're here in the Haliothorpe, Baltimore suburb area at the Brewery, Guinness Brewery, coming at you live. So if you're hearing this today, that's where we all are, having a good time. Hopefully you'll make sure you're at the next one next month. I want to start out by quickly just thanking some of our sponsors that are here with us, and that we can thank them for today's event. Starting with our major sponsor, I want to thank Victor Pita from T. Rowe Price. Where's Victor? Yeah, Victor, thanks so much for being the major sponsor for us. Thank you for T. Rowe Price. Okay, and I also want to thank our other major sponsor, Frank Nicolonis from Principal Financial. And I want to say the two plates on the far right on the end, sponsored by Principal Financial. I'm just kidding. I do want to say Principal Financial is just a key place when you're looking at disability benefits. They have great strategies, and they provide a lot of good value and services, particularly when you're trying to determine for business valuations and so forth. A lot of backroom work with their legal departments and teams. So we do appreciate all that you do for us as NAIFA members too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. I want to also thank three very key sponsors. They're actually throughout the year they sponsor us as not only sponsors but their partner relationships, and that would be Bellman Klein, and we've got Dave Beck here. And Dave Beck is, again, disability specialist. I refer to him as DI Dave. I've worked with Dave for years. And as
hashtag
DI Dave, hashtag. Okay, he's going to be, if you stay with us, you'll hear him a little later. He's going to be our platform speaker, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about how that relationship will work to benefit our members, regardless of where you are in your career. If it's just basically starting out, you're going to learn a little bit about how Dave can support those needs. The reason for the sponsorship partnership relationship, it's about the education that they bring to our members. It's about information you can learn today and use tomorrow. And Dave is a great example of that. I've learned so much from him over the years, not only to work with individuals, business professionals and owners, but the business continuity principles and so forth. So Dave Beck for disability. And then we also have AXA Equitable Financial. We have Michael Zawatsky. Did I say it right, Michael? There we go. I just call him Michael Z. Michael Z, there we go. Michael Z, AXA Equitable, another great partner sponsor, not only for the products and services that they have, but just the general knowledge actually the specialized knowledge that he brings regarding the industry in general and how you take care of protecting the downside of certain assets in your portfolio. So make sure, for those of you who are here, you get a chance to talk to Michael to learn more about that. And if you're not here, if you're zooming in, again, regardless of where you are, whether you do annuities, don't do annuities, you're a financial advisor, you're not, you want to know who Michael Z is, because you want to understand how be more well-rounded in your planning and as you work with your clients. All of us can be better able to serve our clients when we're more broad-based in terms of our thinking. It might not be our products that we offer, but our clients expect us to be there to provide solutions and introduce the fellow NAIFA members who can provide those services when you can't. And by knowing these individuals and taking advantage of that education, you're able to do that. And then finally, we've got a third one. I know I'm missing one. HTA. They're not here with us today, but not least at all, because for those of us, I would say probably one of the major areas of planning that we see as we get a little bit older is Medicare, and HTA has been an educational resource. Their entire team. No one sells. There is no commission-based people at HTA. There's strictly an opportunity to educate your clients. They certainly have an opportunity to provide those products and services, but it's all team-based. So HTA providing that education and value at every level throughout not only the state, I believe it's national, and they have products and services across the board. So HTA are specialists for Medicare and a partner. Okay, at this time I want to introduce, first of all, I want to thank I'm going to say real quickly some presidents that are in the room, some past presidents, like Bruce Palmieri, past president of the police stand. Willie Franklin is in the room, past president. Okay, I know we have a future president, next president, right behind me. We got Michael here from Northwestern Mutual. Okay, and I would like to, I know that I'd like to introduce next Bryson Poppin and Joan Smith, our lobbyists here in Maryland. And we couldn't even really do 25% of what we do without knowing that they're there to lead us in that effort in Annapolis, and also to support us on the national level too with NAIFA National. So Bryson Poppin. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, here we go. No further ado.
Where's Joe?
Joan, come on up.
Yes,
We're running.
Okay. Most of you are here for our earlier guest, Senator Antonio Hayes. I hope you had a chance to introduce yourself, let them know what you do. That's very important. Now we have a guest who is known to all of us. He knows what we do. We know what he does. And I just said to Senator Hayes out in the lobby, he's the best insurance commissioner that I have seen in my 40 plus years of watching Maryland insurance commissioners, and he should be, because this is his second time in the job. But, okay, yeah, a little more, folks. But really, he's Al Redmer comes from our ranks. He knows the issues that we face. He knows the pressures that we face. He knows the opportunities that we are trying to take advantage of. Most of all, he knows the services we are trying to bring to Maryland citizens. When I started this job 40 years ago, almost, the job of insurance commissioner anywhere was one thing: to assure the solvency of insurers. That's still important, but today, an equally important, and some would say more important, job is to protect insurance consumers, not from us, but from lots of things that can happen to them. And we have a complex set of laws, 4 volumes of them, that do that. His office is the one that enforces those laws. Senator Hayes just paid him a compliment, well deserved, about the performance of his staff in doing that. And we are truly lucky to have as our insurance commissioner, Mr. Al Redmer.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Very nice. I appreciate that.
Always a pleasure.
So it's great to be here, and I'm going to apologize for my shabby nature. This is the beginning of No Shave November to promote prostate cancer awareness. So all of you guys of a certain age, make sure you get that examination. You'll be glad you did, kind of. Kind of a mixed bag. But it's a pleasure to be here. For those of you that were here for Senator Hayes, thank you for being here for him. I have known Antonio since he was, I think, an intern in the House of Delegates when I was a member of the House of Delegates. He is a stand-up good guy, and he is always open and considerate as he goes through the decision-making process. You are very fortunate to have Joan and Bryson. They have impeccable relationships in Annapolis. They have tremendous influence and credibility, but they can't do it by themselves. They need your help in influencing those in government, whether it's the executive branch or the legislative branch. And your credibility and your numbers increase the influence that they have. So for you to come out, introduce yourself to Senator Hayes, and let him know that there's a whole group, a whole association behind them is very helpful. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and run through some of the things that we have been working on at the Maryland Insurance Administration, and then pause for whatever questions you might have and talk about whatever you would like to talk about. First, thank you for what you do as an association. We deal with folks on a regular basis that believe that they have been taken advantage of, they've been given incorrect information, etc. And your commitment to education and professionalism is very much appreciated, because that makes our job so much easier. So I appreciate that. One of the fascinating things, as Bryson says, I'm commissioner, but I was commissioner before. I left in 2005. I came back in 2015, almost 10 years to the day. And insurance regulation really hasn't changed much over the years. We still enforce the same laws, and the same carriers to some degree are still doing the same thing. But what has changed 1,000 times in those 10 years was the proliferation of technology. And you know how the analogy I use, it's kind of like your kids. You see your kids every day, you really don't notice them grow up, but you see your little nephew Johnny, you haven't seen him in 10 years, like, whoa, he's big all of a sudden. Well, it's the same way when I left the administration, came back 10 years later and saw the technology and the influence it had on regulation. And it has been significant. So our role in enforcing the laws is to make sure the rates that you all and the carriers charge meet the standards of the law. They've got to be actuarially justified. They can't be excessive. They can't be inadequate. Most importantly, they cannot be unfairly discriminatory, which is one of my favorites because that means it can be fairly discriminatory. But it can't be unfairly discriminatory. And when you think about your car insurance, if somebody called us with a complaint about their premium 20 years ago, our analyst, our investigator, would pull the State Farm rate manual off, ask you a half a dozen questions, and in about 10 minutes be able to determine what your car insurance should be. But now with technology, the folks that sell this stuff don't know where the premiums come from, except it comes from the computer. And what used to be a half a dozen or a dozen rating factors might now be 1,000 rating factors or more using public information and so on. Our folks need to understand how those complex, sophisticated algorithms work, how the different rating factors count, and how they interact with each other in order to determine and make sure that those algorithms are not producing an unfairly discriminatory rate. So it's very, very complicated, something we spend a lot of time on tracking, big data, understanding how it's used, and that it's verifiable. But that's a long-winded way to say one of the things we're going to look at over the next couple of months is how this technology has impacted our rebating laws. So you know rebating, you can't give anything of value over a certain amount of money as an inducement for somebody to buy your product. But there's a lot of technology available that carriers want to provide customers that makes sense. So as an example, if an insurance company that does your homeowners gives you a device to measure moisture in the basement for flooding, should that be against the law because it's rebating? No, I think it's something we need to look at. There are insurance carriers that are offering technologies regarding your health care so that if you sell a life product and you're able to demonstrate a healthy lifestyle with technology like Fitbits and those kinds of things, that you might get a lower premium based on your healthy lifestyle. Should that be rebated? So there's a lot of technology out there. We want to give it a thoughtful, deliberate look and see if we need to make changes so that we can still, A, protect the consumers, as Bryson mentioned, but also do that in a way that allows consumers to benefit from some of the new technologies to help reduce or mitigate their exposure to risk. Additionally, we're going to start looking at Maryland's captive laws. You may not get involved in captives, but in any event, there are plenty of them that are out there. Very few are in the state of Maryland because our laws are not favorable to the creation of captives. So we're putting together a work group. We're going to look at captives and see if it might make sense to tweak our law to make it more inviting in Maryland for those, especially our homegrown companies, to form their captive in Maryland as opposed to going to some other jurisdiction, Delaware, District of Columbia, Vermont. Hate to make people go to the Cayman Islands. I mean, that's so we're going to look at that. I am beginning to look at what's happening nationally, especially at the NAIC, with these best interest standards as it relates to annuity suitability. If you look at what's happening at the NAIC, this baby is propped up on on the rail. The train has a lot of steam, but there are a number of things in it that give me heartburn. There are different standards, compliance standards, depending on whether you are just licensed to sell insurance or if you are licensed to sell insurance and securities. I don't know why there should be different standards for the annuity sale. Also, I'll give you an example. One of the provisions of the model law as drafted is if you sell annuities, you can be in the business for 30 years. You could be a CLU, CHFC, CPA, you name it, and you got to take a basic annuity 101 CE class for 4 hours, and I just think that's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, we're going to continue to watch that. We're going to watch it closely. On the health insurance front, for those who's in the health business at all, we've got a few. Has anybody ever heard of PANDAS? Not the bear. PANDAS. I had never heard of it before in my life until January of this last year. I was contacted by a rabbi who had a number of incidents that he had been aware of. PANDAS is an illness, I'll call it, that afflicts children that have been exposed to a strep throat. And what happens is this bacteria back channels to the brain, and these kids have immediate and significant symptoms, including behavioral issues, learning disabilities, violent behavior, etc. And it's like this is new, which is kind of amazing to me. The rabbi contacted me because these health insurance claims were being denied. So we put together a work group. We've made a lot of progress. Most of the claims now are not being denied. But part of our work has to be to let folks know that this is even out there. You know, if you've got a kid or a grandkid or what have you that all of a sudden starts experiencing unusual symptoms and they've been exposed to strep throat, remember PANDAS. It's a pretty serious thing. We continue to battle with the conflicts between pharmacy benefit managers and mostly independent pharmacies. These conflicts, these business practices have been going on literally since I was in the legislature in the mid-1990s. Every year, not every year, the last couple of years, the legislature addresses the issue. They give us authority with a new law, and some highly paid attorneys take about 2 days to figure out how to circumvent the intent of the law, and then we go back and the legislature takes another bite at it as well. But to make a long story short, we have expanded regulatory authority over PBMs that we never had. 2019, the legislature drafted new legislation. We are going through the regulatory process currently, and these draconian business practices you may have read in the paper is causing independent pharmacies around the state to go out of business. So it's something we spend a lot of time looking at. The Affordable Care Act is certainly more stable today than it has been the last couple of years. As you know, the governor, the legislature, and we worked on legislation last year to create a waiver from the federal government to create a reinsurance program that increased the number of folks in the pool for 2019. It at least incrementally lowered the average age, so the claims experience was positive. And for 2018, for the first time in the history of the Affordable Care Act, we saw some carriers make a little bit of money. We just published the final rates for 2020. We are currently in open enrollment, and we saw a rate decrease last year of about, I think it was 23 or 24% on average. Coming into 2020, it's going to be a decrease of low single digits. So we're seeing some stability, and we hope that continues to improve through 2020. The average rate increase for small group is low single digits. I think it was 3-4%, something like that. So, the good news is we see some stability that we haven't seen in a couple of years. The Health Benefit Exchange is working on a waiver from the federal government regarding the SHOP program. If you remember the SHOP program, that's where smaller businesses can get tax benefits, tax subsidies for providing benefits to their employees. The bad news is it has not seen much enrollment. It's still under 1,000 lives after 5 or 6 years, and the reason is, for the most part, these small business owners don't get the tax benefit until the back end. You provide the insurance today, you pay for the insurance during the course of the year, you file your taxes, and you get the tax break on the back end. So from a cash flow perspective, it's not helping. So the exchange is working on another waiver from the federal government that would allow the SHOP program to provide the upfront tax benefit on a cash flow basis, so that they could benefit immediately, as opposed to working on the back end, and hopefully that would see the market improve a little bit. As you probably know, with the last legislative session, there was a slight change to the CE process, where you have to complete your CEs. I think it's 2 weeks before the renewal of your license. Part of the bill, at Bryson and your request, required us to do a study of CE with the intent of doing a better job of oversight, I guess, as to the quality of CEs that take place in Maryland. The work group has met. I believe they completed their work. They are, our folks are in the process of putting the final touches on a report. And the only thing of substance I can tell you is I've been told that any changes that we decide to make, we can make through regulation or operational changes without having to go to the General Assembly, and that's always a good answer. We are also contemplating, because I can't talk about our legislative package until the governor's office gives the blessing, but we are looking at trying to provide a CE rollover of some sort for folks that are in a designation program. So, when you're taking your CLU or whatever the course load is, and you get all these CEs, we think you should be able to roll them over to the next cycle, as opposed to starting from scratch. The last thing of note that I'll mention is we spend a lot of time trying to add competition to Maryland, and we've been successful, except for that individual health insurance market. But in the last 4.5 years, we've added over 150 new carriers and lines of coverage to Maryland. That's a good thing. That's competition. It gives us more choice as buyers. Helps moderate pricing and improves customer service. But one of the things I learned as I was, and it adds jobs, by the way, but as I was, have been talking to carriers in the state of Maryland, one of the things that I heard, and from carriers outside of Maryland, is we don't have a large professional insurance workforce. And if you think about it, if you're going to open an office in Maryland, you're going to add 200 jobs, and you need to fill those, where are you going to get them? Naturally, you would think that you're going to poach your talent, the other competitors in the marketplace. Well, most of these corporate jobs in Maryland have left over the last couple of decades, US F&G, Maryland Casualty, etc. The other thing I heard, we don't have a great talent pool coming out of college. Hartford Mutual, a nice little domestic company in Bel Air, told me that they get about a dozen interns every year from Temple University. Because in Maryland, and I was being like you in the business forever, I was embarrassed to learn that in Maryland, you couldn't get an insurance risk management degree. So we started knocking on doors. We found a willing partner with former Mayor Kurt Schmoke at the University of Baltimore, and it took 2.5 years, but as of this fall, there are students enrolled in an insurance risk management degree at the University of Baltimore. So we're trying to do what we can to help promote that and increase enrollment. And lastly, with that, like us on Facebook, help us share the information, get the word out. And Brian, I'll leave it to you if you want to do questions or give me the book.
I'm going to shake your hand.
Yeah, yeah.
And say, hey, I'm going to give a quick comment here. I've known now Al Redmer long before he ever was in the position as insurance commissioner, but mostly hearing my wife, who runs our benefits agency for 25 years, called the most experienced person in our industry at the time. He was the go-to guy on the health insurance side, working for the different relationships that he had. For many
Kind of
years.
her, I don't believe it, but it was
Yeah,
kind of
well, anyway, I just want to say, he knows our industry, and I just really appreciate that we have somebody who does running the show here in Maryland. So thank you for all that.
I appreciate that.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
We had some questions last time.
Sure.
Yeah, we can take
yeah.
we can take one because we are running on
Okay.
a tight agenda. Let's grab one.
And I'm going to be hanging around for a while. They
Sure,
might have
he's
other
here.
questions,
That's
yeah.
great. Bruce. Yeah.
Nobody else?
What's the biggest concern that we have right now? With if you would just pick one right now that you have in terms of our industry.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Your office will be overseeing this new retirement program coming in from the state, for small businesses. Maybe I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, the state's requiring or allowing small businesses to get into this small business retirement plans. The state's going to be overseeing. You didn't know if your office would oversee that division.
No, so, and I haven't seen it, but if anybody is selling annuities in that program, we will probably oversee that activity.
And I can supplement the commissioner's comments. We did have a coalition to deal with this when the legislation was initially introduced. We were able to constrict the original plan, which would have put a full-blown state-run 401k competitor. It is not that. It is a savings plan, IRA only. Our go-to guy is two people down from you, Willie Franklin right there.
Okay.
We have sent him into the Lions Den to talk to Senator Rosa Pepp and others. So just ask Willie, but you're as safe as we can make you. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
Any other questions I can't answer?
Well, once again, let's hear it for our
Thank you.
As we go on with the program, okay, guys, as we go on with the program, I want you to know again, we have members, NAIFA members from around the state that are zooming in. We'll be sending this around to all the membership over the next few days so that everyone gets an opportunity to hear the information that we're sharing with you today. I want to just introduce real quickly, I just want to just quick shout out. We have Dilip Javari in the back of the room. He's a immediate past president. We have Dilip. Just raise your hand, Dilip. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for for stepping in when you did, and for helping us move to the next step as we continue NAIFA 2020 in NAIFA Maryland. So thanks, Dilip. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the rest of you know we have other past presidents in the room. But I also want to take just a couple seconds to thank all of you at home or your office, wherever you are. If you're NAIFA members, then thank you again for supporting an organization that's the biggest voice for our industry in the country. So thanks again. I feel an obligation to NAIFA, which is why I'm in the position of president now, is because I want to give back, and I recognize that just by being a member, each one of us is absolutely doing that. So again, thank you for your commitment to your industry, to your clients, and to NAIFA Maryland. Thank you. Okay, so
Brian,
I
I
want
have one request for everybody in the room. Joan has misplaced her phone.
It's right here.
I'm ringing it.
It's right here. Okay. I thought it was me. It's usually my food bar.
Everybody can sit down.
Okay, so as we go on with the program, the next thing I want to do is I want to introduce our membership chair, but I want to, again, first I want to thank Bruce Palmieri for being not only a past president, but I also want to thank Bruce for being the host for tonight's event. Bruce and Willie, where's Willie at? Two past presidents, Willie and Bruce. Thank you so much, Willie. Okay, and at this time I'm going to ask our membership chair, Bruce Palmieri, to come on up.
Thanks. So, thanks for coming out. We'll have time later. Bar is open, so to speak. The NAIFA Maryland, NAIFA National has three key promises to everybody who's in our industry or connected to our industry, and that's to educate, to advocate, and to differentiate you in the marketplace. This is one of the ways we educate you. There's other ways that we educate you online, very easy, on your phone. You can do a quick seminar, 15-minute video on your phone, and catch an idea that may put some money in your pocket or help a client. More importantly, help a client. We advocate for you a couple times a year. We go to Washington, D.C. twice a year. We go to Annapolis once a year. Annapolis is coming up. Bryson, when is that? January 13th-ish?
Well, our evening in Annapolis, we call it the first Monday.
Yeah.
It is Joan.
The 13th is when the evening announcements, so they start on the 8th, I think, on Wednesday.
We do expect breaking news. We do expect there to be an issue if a certain bill is introduced. We're going to have our day on the hill again. Brian,
So-
I haven't said anything to you yet.
So what Bryson is saying for anybody who can't hear is that there's some news coming out that we're going to do a day on the Hill where we're going to walk around Annapolis and visit some legislators.
Just like Senator Hayes here.
Just like Senator Hayes, who was here, we're going to go to their offices, introduce ourselves, and talk about the issues that affect our clients and our industry. And then the way one of the other promises is to differentiate you in the marketplace. Online, if they seek out search your name on Google, NAIFA will start to become populated through the Google search system, and if you're in good standing, your name will show up. So those are the three promises. All they ask, if you're not a member, is to give them a chance. So give us a chance to prove that the value of NAIFA is long-term. Us that have been around a while know that. We do have a new member. Dave, come up. We do have a new member that joined just recently. So our newest member, hi, what's your name?
David Dempster.
David Dempster. So David, as becoming a new member, gets a pin, and that pin signifies your commitment to your industry and to your clients and to the best interest of your clients. And I can't get it there.
Oh, got it.
I'm not good at that. I never did a boutonniere, right? Anybody ever did? Anyway,
We didn't practice that.
That is all. There you go.
Thanks,
Thank
Bruce.
you.
Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
Let's
no
hear it one
problem.
more time.
Pleasure to meet you.
I'm glad you're here. All right, I'm done. You can finish our program. Thank you all.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to, again, as we go on to what he said, the whole purpose of these regional meetings, educate, advocate, differentiate. This is about having you leave here tonight with information that you learned today and you could use tomorrow. We're going to have a couple of opportunities to hear some people as we go on with the program. They're going to do just that. They're going to talk in a somewhat of a broad-based way to give us a broader understanding, whether it's our sweet spot or not. It'll help us to be better, more valuable to our clients, so we can be more service to our industry and to those that we serve. I did want to remind everyone also at home and offices as well as here that next Wednesday morning at the Colony 7 Ballroom, I'm not sure where that is. Anybody want to throw it out?
Colony South.
Colony South. Don't go to Colony 7. Go to Colony South Ballroom. You'll find it on the NAIFA Maryland website. Make sure if you haven't signed up already that you do. But understand we will have a Zoom presentation for that as well. We got a great speaker. He's with AXA Equitable. He'll be talking about, where's he at? AXA Equitable. Michael Zaworski. Topic is
considerations for a successful retirement.
Considerations for a successful retirement. With the volatility in the market that we've seen over the last weeks and months, I think all of us could benefit from hearing a little bit about some of the things you need to consider as we go through potentially 30 years of retirement. We have someone in the house today that long-term care specialist on the home care side. My mind just went blank, so full name.
It's Elizabeth Waglon, Elizabeth Community Care Network.
Okay, and I want to tell you, 3 generations of home care giving from early birth to right to the oldest client, 113 years old. The husband is 110. They're providing care to that couple. So I don't think too many people know more than she does regarding the home care side of things. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, so with that said, I want to introduce our speaker today. First, Dave Beck. So he's one of our sponsor partner relationships. Dave Beck is with Bellman Klein. Again, Bellman Klein has earned this opportunity and this relationship because of the education and the value that go along with the independent research and opportunities that in a broad way that he provides all of us as members of NAIFA Maryland. So with no further ado, I want to introduce Dave Beck. Dave?
All right, so it was the summer of 2002. It was August. I was working as an assistant manager for a local guitar shop playing in heavy metal bands, hanging out in dive bars, and I was in school at the Sheffield Institute for recording arts, going for a certificate in audio engineering. My father, financial advisor, tax practice financial advisor, also on the weekends during football season, was a college football official for the Big East. His biggest claim to fame during that time was being booed by 100,000 people and also calling Ray Lewis on defensive hold. He'll tell you the story, it's a great story. However, also in that summer, he had just returned to work after recovering from a staph infection from a corrective surgery that he had in his knee. From the years of beating up his body, one thing I also forgot to tell you is that he played for the USA lacrosse team, so the guy ran constantly. But he wore all the cartilage out the inside of his right knee, and he was bone-on-bone contact. So in order to fix that, they had to do some pretty invasive surgery. So what they do is they go in there, I'm not going to go into detail, but they make the knee to where there's no cartilage, they make them knock knee, basically, right? So there's a lot of metal that goes in there. Unfortunately, he contracted that staph infection and he was back to work. So one summer in August, I'm working at Guitar Center. The phone calls for me, as it often did back then. It was my mom. My mom was on the phone and she was in tears, and she had just told me that my father had a heart attack. I had a cash deal in my hand, didn't even care about the client at that point. Sorry, whoever that client was. That was 15 years ago. I ran into the sales office, threw the money at my manager, said, I'm out of here. He's like, where are you going? I was like, my father had a heart attack, I'm going. Ran, got my little brother off of the football field. I thought his coach was going to kill me. Didn't matter to me, got him, went to the hospital. There was my dad. That was one of the hardest times in my life with my family. And I also tell you, I'm sure all of you know something bad has happened to somebody that you know. So the good news is about that story is that my dad is fine. He's okay. He's back to being a giant pain in my ass. I love his dad. However, the bad news is that he will never, ever be able to retire. He will always have to work in some capacity to bring income in for himself. That's my why. That's why I'm a disability insurance specialist. That's why I partner with NAIFA. I'm a NAIFA member, I'm a NAIFA sponsor, and I'm proud to be a NAIFA sponsor. And one thing that I love about my job is not only spreading the gospel of income replacement disability insurance, but I love working with financial advisors because that gives me a larger footprint and a larger net to cast out to talk to people about this stuff because people aren't talking about it. Right? And it doesn't matter where you are in your career. If you're starting brand new, I'm sure there might be some new people in the Zoom meeting, or whether you're 30 years in, which a lot of you might be that, no offense. But we can work with you in any capacity, whether it's just quotes, spreadsheets, sales ideas. What carrier is this? Or we can go all the way to the concierge service for the point of sale, point of solution. We work with career reps, we work with RIAs, we work with independent broker dealers, property and casualty agents like my friend Harry Webster, group benefits producers. In any capacity that you are in, we can help. And one of the things that I've found when working with you guys is that you all believe in it. Who here doesn't believe in income replacement? Anybody? None of you do? Wow, are you serious? You guys don't believe it?
I raised my
Did
hand.
you raise your hand? Man, this is dude, you guys just totally ruined my shine.
I thought you said the other way around.
No, who
believes
does
in it?
not believe in it, right? Or I mean, who believes in it? You got me all confused. I'm all confused. Right, so everybody's hand should have been raised, right? So I mean, look, so when I'm talking to the financial advisors, and they all of them tell me that they believe in it and that they want to talk about it, but they have trouble even bringing the conversation up with their clients, where they don't know how to do it. Now I know Bruce does a great job, because he does it, so does Willie, but most don't. Most are like, they got group benefits. They got it through work. Well, let's review it. Let's be a consultant. Let's not just say they got it and then move on. Let's review what a claim would look like if they would have to trigger one from their group benefits, right? Group benefits are basically a 2-year benefit period with a cap, and it's a taxable benefit as employers paying the premium. Right? Do you guys know that? Right? So we got to consult. We got to make sure that they're going to be okay. All right? So do the review. And here's my idea that worked with the financial advisor that I've done in the past. You guys set up reviews for your clients, right? You might confirm the meeting within 2 weeks or a week of them coming in. Well, if you want to open it up and you don't want to seem like it's just bombarding them, ask them if they would be opposed to having an income replacement conversation at that review meeting. I guarantee you none of them will say that. And then you can ask them to bring their group certificates with them. Then what you do with that is you forward me the group certificates. I summarize it. We'll make sure you have every line in there to make sure they know what a claim would look like if they were to have to trigger, right? Also, with that, with disability income insurance and the group benefits, having that taxable benefit is going to be a big gap, right? So then, if you have that $5,000 a month of cap, taxes are what, $3,500? Are you happy or? So then we got to talk about reviewing, because what we got to do is we got to get good at navigating their personal recession or their personal downturn in the market. So that's why I'm a big believer in income replacement, a big believer in NAIFA. I thank you all for listening to my spiel real quick, but I've also got one thing I'm going to plug about NAIFA and how I view NAIFA and what it's done for me. Where's my anyway, I don't need it. Anyway, NAIFA's done a lot for me. It's made me great relationships with given me great relationships with you all. I've got some great friendships. A lot of you came. But one of the best things that came was this little book that I got from NAIFA. Have any of you guys seen this? NAIFA members, right? Dylan, what is it? The Common Denominator of Success, right? And it's written by Albert Gray, who's a 30-year credential advisor. And I believe, I don't even know if he's still alive. I don't know. But anyway, it's a great book, and that's where that line that comes from, successful people do what failures are not willing to do. Exactly. And we don't want our clients to fail. So we need to open up the conversation about income replacement. We need to make it more than an insurance policy. We need to make it a hedge, and we need to make it a strategy. And when you're delivering the policy, would it be crazy to have the path forward with them, which is why we invited Elizabeth Cooney, Elizabeth Wegline, and Jeff Wegline. What if you put one of these little flyers right into their policy when you deliver it? So, hey, if you ever got a trigger, you've got a path forward. Right? Brings a lot of value. So now it's not just a policy that you've sold, it's a strategy, it's a hedge, and they have a path forward. Hopefully, they'll never have to trigger. But NAIFA's afforded me all that relationships. And to me, when I'm looking at the premium that's coming out of my bank account from NAIFA, I look at it as my insurance for this industry, for what NAIFA does on the Hill. Thanks to Brian Jollis for everything that this guy does as the president of NAIFA. Can we give him another round of applause? I mean, the amount of time that you take to do these things is insurmountable, and I really appreciate it. Also, shout out to Bryson and Joan. What you guys do for us at the state and the federal level is absolutely immense, and I appreciate it. I started losing my train of thought, and then I got all whacked. But I wanted to bring that to you guys. So here's my ask: if you're not NAIFA members, consider joining. Download the app on your phone. You can do it like that. It's $56 a month. On the website, on NAIFA's website, in the advocacy, there's professional development, there's webinars, there's all sorts of things that you can go on there. Market Costco is a big proponent of that. All right, so consider joining. Also, next thing, link in with me. Go to my LinkedIn page, connect with me, and let's start a conversation together so that we can have the conversation with your clients to help spread the gospel of disability. That's all I got for you. Thank you very much.
While you're up here, Dave, and again, for those of you at your offices or home, I just want to again remind you that it's knowledge you can learn today and use tomorrow. I just want to suggest again, a lot of people don't bring up disability because they're not comfortable if they know enough about the subject. And it's really just about how he started his presentation tonight. It's about the heartfelt feeling of what disability actually does to protect someone's most important asset, their ability to earn an income. We all have stories that you know like that, and really put that to heart. And when you're sitting with your client, admit, I'm not a disability specialist, but I've been in this industry and I understand the value that what disability does to protect people's paychecks. A lot of people out there don't really understand that. They think they're covered with workers' comp or in some other way, and they're not. Business owners don't understand that there's so many things available to them to make sure their businesses are protected. I had a conversation this morning with a chiropractor who recently got disabled. We're talking, and I'm realizing we never had the conversation about business overhead expense. And he told me on that phone conversation, while I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, he doesn't have that. Realizing he and I both that he has a business partner that will carry on, who's also a chiropractor. But there are many chiropractors who are the only ones in their practice, and they don't have business overhead expense. If that's a concept you're not familiar with, it's sort of an easy way to really help somebody in a big way. There's so many different levels of this, and this is a guy who really knows the industry. He has the products and services to support that. A lot of the people in the room that are in the field, principal at Ohio National, and a few others that are in that space, those are key, really strong products. But you got a guy here who knows them all, who can help you, he and his company, really understand how they fit in and provide those needs. It's a matter of just answering those questions for you. Dave's here to do that, to add that backroom and that value. And there's specialists all around the room here, and those of you in your offices at home that can add that value. When you come to events like this, you get a chance to meet fellow NAIFA members and partnerships. Michael Garrity's not here today, but we're meeting with one of his clients next week to sit down and talk about an area that he and I have some common expertise, but we have different, you're strong in some areas and not in others. And in that case, we rely on each other's service, knowledge, and value. And it's about that networking that we have when you're here in person. So this is a quick reason why I want to say next week you have another opportunity to be here in person and have that opportunity to get that added value when we're all together and the energy that creates. So thanks again, Dave Beck, for all you do for being a part of this. We're going to bring up our host, Bruce Palmieri, and we'll continue with our program.
Grab a chair.
Carry your chair.
So the next thing I wanted to do with this is to interview Victor. So Victor is divisional sales manager at T. Rowe Price. So show of hands, how many people are financial advisors that do investment planning and insurance planning in the room? And how many people in the room have a 401k? Simple IRA, SEP IRA. And how many people know who T. Rowe Price is? Right? So local firm, T. Rowe's been around
1937.
long time. Dad was born at 25, so he watched them.
Bruce,
Yes.
how many people are clients of T. Rowe Price?
How many people are clients at T. Rowe Price, right?
Thank you.
Speak up. We can slide up this.
Sure.
We're getting closer to the microphone.
Yep.
So for anybody at home, Victor Pita, divisional sales manager, T. Rowe Price. Victor calls on me, Mike Case, anybody else who sells investments inside of a 401k plan, right? 401k providers, but also as advisors in advisory fee-based accounts. And one of the things I wanted to do is ask Victor to explain a little of the value that he provides us in the field. So one of the first questions, Victor and I talked this morning, one of the first questions that I thought I wanted to ask a long time ago when I thought of this is, what do you do to help us grow our practices? And what does T. Rowe Price think about that as a whole?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Bruce, for the opportunity to partner together and to be here. Thank you, Brian, for putting on a great event, and thank you all for everything that you do for your clients. As I'm listening to the previous speakers, you all are really passionate about educating your clients, about improving the financial quality of life of your clients, and that is what we strive to do at T. Rowe Price every single day. We're coming at it from the investment management side, but we need partners like you all because the financial quality of life of an individual or a client involves retirement, savings, insurance, making sure that they're covered, and so they really need that holistic. That holistic view that you all can help bring, and so appreciate the opportunity of being here. In terms of how T. Rowe Price can help you all with your practices, as a divisional sales manager at T Rowe, I was formerly the Maryland-based external wholesaler, calling on advisors like Bruce and Willie and others in the room. Now as a divisional sales manager, I have to put my management hat on a little bit more and look at things a little bit more strategically. And so as we were talking about our panel today, it really got me thinking about, well, why is it that we do what we do? And Dave had a great story about what his why is, and really encapsulated what it's all about. At the end of the day, from T Rowe, from a strategic perspective, we need to help you all grow your practices, and the industry has evolved and it's changed. So 10, 15, 20 years ago, a typical asset management salesperson would come into an office of a financial advisor and they'd be looking to sell a product. They'd be looking to pitch a particular mutual fund or a separate account or something that they had in their back pocket. And the industry has evolved where that doesn't matter anymore. That doesn't add any value. And so at T Rowe, we have the advantage of not having a distribution sales force in place for the last 20, 30, or 40 years. And we don't have the baggage that comes along with operating in this industry the way that it existed 15 or 20 years ago. We can sort of come at and build our sales force from a perspective of what does the industry need today and what do you all need tomorrow.
It wasn't too long ago that the T Rowe wasn't working with advisors.
That's right.
At all.
At all.
When did that start?
So that started. So it's a bit of a complicated answer, but I'll give you the short answer. It started in 2012 when we started building a sales force to go out and build and engage with and build relationships with advisors for the first time. T Rowe had been calling on the home offices, a lot of the broker dealers going back to the mid '90s.
Okay.
So being in the home office models, that's more of a
Not long ago.
not long ago.
Right.
So 2012 is when it really started. I was the second outside hire that T Rowe Price had made. I did not grow up on this side of the business. The first 13 years of my career, I was in New York City, and I was with Raymond James on their institutional equity sales desk.
Okay.
So my clients were hedge funds, and I was pitching long, short equity ideas for their portfolios.
Perfect. Everybody know what that is?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I knew from a personal standpoint that my wife and I wanted to relocate down here. My wife grew up in Bethesda, and as I started to kind of network my way in at T Rowe was when they were building this sales force for the first time. And so it was the classic story of right place and right time,
Right.
Because I didn't even know if they were looking for somebody like me. And by the way, I didn't have any experience on this side of the business, and they decided to give me a shot because specifically they wanted to put people in the field who could add value on the investment side. And it's not just about throwing a fact sheet on a table and selling a particular fund. So to succinctly answer your question in terms of how we can help, it's all about being consultative and not coming in trying to sell a product, but it's about trying to figure out what is it that you all need. It's the same exact approach that you all take with your clients every single day, but it's amazing how on the asset management and the distribution side, it's taken the industry a while to adapt. And so I'm proud to represent a firm like T Rowe that understands that, and also comes from a position of relative strength where we have a lot of different products that are really good. My conversation with an advisor could go in 9 or 10 different directions. I'm not sure where it's going to go. It depends on the need. Whereas a lot of other firms, unfortunately, they only have a handful of funds or products that they have, and every conversation is going to go down one of those roads.
That's right.
So it allows us to be truly consultative. That's just as it relates to product. I mean, the other aspect of this is helping you all grow your businesses. And so whether it's coming up with material on our intellectual capital around market expertise or market outlooks, whether it's material that can help you all engage with the different generations of your clients, and as an advisor thinking about how can I engage with the younger generation, to build a very healthy foundation for my practice. How can I engage with my female clients and talk to them about the unique challenges that women face in preparing for and having a successful retirement? There's a a whole stable of material that we have to help you all have more meaningful and better conversations with your clients.
And that's really the value that we end up seeing, is that our clients know T Rowe because they're local here to Baltimore, and they when we're in front of somebody and we're showing them an idea that came from Victor or someone else, and they see the name, they know the name, it adds credibility for us. So thank you. So looking into the future, there's a couple questions I have, and I'm sure if you have any questions about the economy, we may want to leave that to the end. Right? But one of the questions about looking into the future, how do you see that T. Rowe Price, or how do you and T. Rowe Price see this advisor relationship growing? So right, it started in 1990 kind of slowly. 2012, it's probably getting off the ground. You're working with us more readily. Where are we going to be in 10 years, 15, 20? Do we know?
So I think that picture is still coming into focus. To be honest, I wish I could say we know exactly what it's going to look like. There are so many different things that are changing in the industry, whether it's the DOL rule, which sort of has come and has gone, Reg BI, and what is that going to mean for the industry as a whole. I think a lot of that still has to play out, but the broader industry trends of the growth of fee-based accounts probably is going to continue. The limitation of choice on a lot of broker-dealer platforms, whether they're wirehouse or independent, that's probably going to continue.
Those broker-dealer platforms are paring down the choices that we have.
That's right. Because they view it as risk. If they have 10,000 advisors who are all doing different things in their client portfolios, and there's not strict regulation on the choice that they have, they view that as risk, as well they should.
That's right. Yeah. So kind of related to that, kind of going into the future, what are some bigger picture themes for the capital markets coming up? This is related to not only politics, right? Because all our clients end up having, so everybody here is an investor, right? Has money in, we manage about $130 million in our firm, and every one of our clients asks, should we be out of the market? Because this is an election year, right? And politics aside, people are scared of that. Mm-hmm. So speak to the bigger picture around that.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting time, I think, for all of us to be having conversations about whether it's global economics, investments. Politics seems to be seeping into that conversation, and more to the detriment of investors. I don't think it's a good thing that your political view can start to influence what your outlook might be on either side of the aisle.
Right.
And so, at T. Rowe, it says there on the sign, thoughtful, disciplined decision making. We try to focus on the individual fundamentals of the companies that we're investing in. And so there's a lot of political noise out there. There's a lot of polarization that's gone on. And so I think one of the best things that you all can do with your clients when this topic comes up is to remind them that when it comes to things that are happening in Washington, D.C., they should keep their eyes on what are they doing that's affecting earnings, especially earnings for companies. So, in other words, tax policy. What are they doing in terms of tax policy, and what are they doing as it relates to interest rates, which really is the Fed. Those are the two main factors that impact the capital markets. Everything else is noise, and the average investor forgets that, and it can start to seep into whether they are, bullish or bearish, if they're constructive or they're cautious, and that can lead to very poor decisions. Especially for a long-term investor who thinks that they need to get out of the market. As you all know, timing the market and being consistently right is impossible. And when you get out of the market, you have to be right twice. You have to be right when you get out, and you have to be right when you get back in. And I'm sure that there are plenty of investors out there who got out in 2008 and 2009, and they're still waiting for the opportunity to come back in. So I think, again, that preventing your clients from making the wrong decision at the wrong time is some of the best value that you can add as, you know, investment advisors or financial advisors.
And in the industry, there's two pretty gross terms. One of them is catch a falling knife, right? So you think about what happens, the market's falling, I gotta buy in, you catch it, you get cut because it keeps going down. And the other is dead cat bounce, right? Doesn't really bounce very high, so sometimes you see a little bounce and then it's just back down. These are all the negatives for the market. The way I see it from all the folks that I deal with Mike Doherty's here from Fidelity. Spent a lot of time with Mike, spent a lot of time with you. What I hear a lot is that, you know, the consumer's very healthy. You want to hurt the economy, hurt the consumer, and hurt the banks. Right now, both are very, very healthy. 3.5%, 50-year low on unemployment. Underemployment is super low. What was it, 176,000 jobs last month? That is underemployment. Mike tells me this, you've told me this. People coming in off the sidelines that weren't looking for a job and now getting a job because unemployment is so low, we don't have enough natural workforce to do that. It has to be the underemployed coming back in.
Yep.
My question on that is, where does that start to slow down? Do you have T. Rowe Price knowledge on that? Do you have the think tank basically that helps us?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
You know, but you know that's an issue that we spend a lot of time thinking about, because I think one of the ingredients of the secret sauce at T. Rowe Price is that we try to be very thoughtful and we try to be very long-term oriented. So we're not all that interested in, you know, what a company's earnings might look like next quarter. Or what the jobs number might look like next month. We're trying to identify what are the trends over the next 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, and what are the changes that are occurring, and who's on the right side of that change, and who's on the wrong side of that change. But I will tell you that we are fairly optimistic about the current economic environment, where, you know, it's been a fairly slow but steady growth environment. You know, we've been averaging around 2% GDP growth in the U.S. since the financial crisis, and I think a year ago, if we were all talking about having, you know, an outlook of a escalating trade war with China over the next 12 to 18 months, a year ago we would think that the global economy would be in recession today, and that the U.S. probably would be as well. And the U.S. economy in particular has been really resilient. And the U.S. consumer up to this point has been largely insulated from a lot of those more geopolitical tensions. But to kind of take a step back and talk about the bigger picture for a minute, and I'll loop back to that. One of the sort of bigger themes that we're focused on, one of the big drivers for the global capital markets today, is the fact that there's so much change and disruption that's going on across industries, across, you know, entire economies, that identifying those trends and identifying who's on the right and wrong side of change is really, in our view, kind of the determinant of whether or not you're going to have a successful investment outcome.
And examples of this, just to interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
Examples of this, if anybody hasn't heard the term recently, that would be Uber, Netflix, or any streaming video service is disrupting cable. Uber's disrupting the cab systems.
That's right. Amazon is disrupting retail. They're disrupting advertising, transportation, companies like FedEx and UPS, let alone cloud computing. You know, that's one company that is disrupting massive end markets. And so it's creating an environment where the winners in this disruptive world are very few, and the losers are very broad. And that's a trend that we think is likely going to continue. And I mean, you can see this if you look back over since 2012, so over the last 7 years, if you look at all of the earnings growth that has come from the S&P 500, so you're talking about 500 companies over the last 7 years, over 20% of the earnings growth has come from 5 companies. I mean, think about that. 5 companies, and it's the names that you would think of. It's Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Netflix. They are growing. They're providing 20% of the overall growth. In other words, they're growing 20 times faster than your average company in the S&P 500. And oh, by the way, they're already among the largest companies by market cap. So they're not just growing quickly because they're small, they're already massive, and their growth rates are actually still accelerating now. So there are a lot of really interesting impacts and implications of that from an investment standpoint. One of them is that the winners are narrow and the losers are very broad. So we're of the mind that over the next 10 to 15 years, being selective and investing in companies that are on the right side of change is going to be more important than what it's been in the last 10 years, because the last 10 years we've had a rising tide, lifting all boats, and simply owning an S&P 500 index fund, as an example, you're able to ride the recovery. Over the next 10 years, you're probably going to see more volatility, lower returns, and security selection and active management we think is going to matter more, and a lot of it is driven by disruption. The other sort of knock-on effect of disruption and sort of the second and third order impact is that if you think about the current global political environment, I mentioned earlier the winners are few and the losers are broad. From an economic standpoint, that means that all the growth is coming from a handful of companies in a handful of cities. That's where the economic opportunity is. So there are large swaths of, whether it's our country or other countries around the world who are not participating in this economic recovery. They're not participating in this economic growth, and so they're feeling left behind, and that is fueling a rise in populism around the world, where you have very nationalistic type leaders like Donald Trump, like Boris Johnson, like Chairman Xi in China, like Duterte in the Philippines, like Vladimir Putin, like I'm blanking on his name, but the new president in Brazil. These are all generally very right-leaning or strongman type leaders that are driving populism and a rise in nationalism around the world. And it's because there are more and more disaffected parts of the populations that are feeling left behind. That's a trend that's probably going to continue. And where all that is going to lead, I don't think anybody can possibly know, but history would tell you that usually a rise in nationalism around the world generally doesn't lead to great outcomes over longer periods of time. And so what I'm talking about is over the next 10, 20, and 30 years, but certainly equity volatility, market volatility, and increases in geopolitical tensions and flare-ups around the world is going to likely not only continue, but probably will escalate over the next several years. So thinking about how disruption is impacting politics and populism around the world is one of the bigger picture themes that we're focused on and we're looking to navigate.
There's a lot to unpack there.
There is. There certainly is. So.
Well, that's all the planned comments I had. Does anybody have any questions for us? I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you doing this. This
Absolutely.
is a big help.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah. All right. So Ryan's going to come back up here in a minute, but I want to thank Jeff Ryan, Ohio National, and Mike Doherty, Fidelity, for helping to support Happy Hour today here. So thank you guys for that.